Hello everyone. Today we are going to be solving equations with variables on both sides on page 14 in our notebook. We're going to have 6 equations, so this might be a little bit of a longer video, but I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of solving equations with variables on both sides. We're going to do it without pictures, without the vertical angles. We're just going to do it using algebraic inverse operations. So number 1, as you can see on the screen, is 4m minus 15 is equal to 2m plus 1. And we're going to use inverse operations to solve for m. I am going to draw a line so I can see the two sides of the equation. And just like what we talked about last week, these two terms are not like terms because one has an m and one doesn't. And these two terms are not like terms because one has an m and one doesn't. These both have m's, the 4m and 2m, but they're on opposite sides of the equation, so we want them to be on the same side. This 4m is positive, this 2m is positive. It does not matter which one you move, you just need to move one of them. I'm going to move the 2m. It's a positive 2m, so I'm going to take 2m away from the left and take 2m away from the right. When I do that, I have 4m minus 2m, which is 2m. I can bring down the minus 15 equals 2m minus 2m is nothing, and I can bring down the plus 1. Now what I've done is I've changed my equation to have variables on both sides to now having a variable on one side. And these are like the equations we've been doing for the last 3 weeks. We want to get the m by itself, so we want to get 2m by itself. So I cover it and I say what's next to my finger, a negative 15. So I'm going to plus 15 on the left, I'm going to plus 15 on the right. And I get 2m equals 1 plus 15 is 16. And then my final step is to divide. I'm going to divide the left by 2, divide the right by 2, and I get m equals 8. All right. If you need to pause the video so you can get those notes copied down, please do so at this time. All right, equation 2 I'm going to do right here on the right-hand side of my notebook. It says v plus 3 is equal to 3v minus 11. And again, I'm going to draw a line to separate my two sides of the equation. Just like the last problem, these two terms are not like terms. One has a v, one doesn't. These two terms are not like terms. One has a v, one doesn't. The like terms are on opposite sides of the equation. This is a v, which means it's a 1v, so you can write the 1 if you would like. And this is a 3v. It does not matter which one you move, but I'm going to take the 1v away. So I'm going to minus 1v from the left, minus 1v from the right. The reason I minus the 1v is because the 1v was positive. 1v minus 1v makes nothing. And I get 3 equals 3v minus 1v is 2v minus 11. Okay, now I want to get the 2v by itself. So I say, okay, what's next to my finger? It's a negative 11. The opposite of minus 11 is to add 11 to both sides. And I get 14 equals 2v. I need to get the v by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I get v is equal to 7, because 14 divided by 2 is 7. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause it at this time. Write down that equation. All right, equation number 3, as you see on the screen or in my notebook, is n plus 9 is equal to 1 minus n. Again, I'm going to draw my line to separate my two sides. These are not like terms, these are not like terms. The like terms are on opposite sides. So I have an n and a negative n. And they're on opposite sides. I want the n's to be on one side, so I'm going to do the inverse. Again, this is a positive 1n and this is a negative 1n. It doesn't matter which variable you move to the other side. I could move the negative 1n by adding 1n to both sides, or I can get rid of the 1n by subtracting 1n from both sides. I like to get rid of negatives so that I don't have to deal with them, so I'm going to actually get rid of this negative 1n by adding 1n to both sides. When I do that, I have 1n plus 1n, which is 2n, plus 9 equals 1. And the negative 1n and the 1n are inverses, so they become 0. We should all be able to solve this equation at this point. We've been practicing it for the last couple weeks. So what I suggest you do is pause the video and try it on your own, and then resume the video and see if you get it right. So from here, I want the 2n by itself, so I'm going to minus 9 from both sides. I get 2n equals 1 minus 9 is a negative 8. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I get n equals negative 4. All right. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video at this time and get that equation in your notebook. All right, number 4 is 7b minus 4 equals negative 14 minus 3b. So I'm going to draw my line to separate my two sides. And I have v's on opposite sides. I have numbers on opposite sides, so I need to have my v's on one side and my numbers on the other. I can get rid of the 7b by subtracting 7 from both sides, or I can get rid of the negative 3 by adding 3 from both sides. It doesn't matter which one you move. I prefer to move negatives so that I can have positive answers. Sorry, not positive answers, but positive variables. So from here, I have 10b minus 4 equals negative 14. I would like you to pause the video and see if you can do this next step on your own, and then resume the video and see if you got it right. Okay, so from here, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I get 10b equals a negative 10. Is negative 14 plus 4 is a negative 10, and I divide by 10 on both sides, and I get b equals negative 1. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and pause the video to get that recorded in your notebook. All right, the last two equations, as seen on the screen, require us to use the distributive property before we can combine like terms and do any inverse operations. If you've been working on your weekly assignments, then you know how to do the distributive property, and if you don't, this is a great time to relearn how to do that. So these two like terms, these two terms on the left are not like terms, so there's nothing we do with them. And we have some like terms here, but in the order of operations, we start with multiplication. So we have to start with multiplication here. So everything on the left just comes down. 34 plus 7r comes down, equals 4 times 2r is 8r, plus 4 times 7 is 28. Now, it's the exact same steps as what I was doing above, but I need to get rid of a variable on one side and have a variable only on one side. These are not like terms, these are not like terms. These are like terms, but they're on opposite sides. I'm going to get rid of the 7r by subtracting 7r from both sides, subtracting 7r. And again, I write the r's under the r's and numbers under the numbers to keep myself organized. So I'm going to get 34, 7r minus 7r is 0, 8r minus 7r is 1r, plus 28. Okay, so from there, I need to get the 1r by itself. So I'm going to minus 28 from both sides. (34 minus 28 is 6, equals 1r. And a lot of you will say here, oh, so I need to divide by 1, and if you want to, that's fine. But anytime you divide a number by 1, it is itself. So the answer is r equals 6, or 6 equals r. Okay. Number 6 uses the distributive property as well. It's on the left-hand side of the equation versus the right-hand side. It doesn't matter what side of the equation it is on. When there's a number on the outside of parentheses, we're going to start by distributing. 5 times m, well, that's 5 times 1m, which makes 5m, plus 5 times 2 is 10, equals m plus 10. I have variables on both sides of the equation, so I'm going to get rid of the smaller one, in this case, minus m, and again, remember that's 1m and 1m, minus 1m, 5m minus 1m is 4m plus 10 equals 10. I want the 4m by itself, so I'm going to minus 10 from the left, minus 10 from the right, and I get 4m, 0 equals, hey, 0 again. All right, we're not done yet. I need to get the 4 and the m separated, so I'm going to divide by 4 on the left, divide by 4 on the right, and 4 divided by 4 is m equals, and 0 divided by 4 is 0. A lot of you will think you did it wrong because you'll say, well, I got 0. 0 is a number, and our answers are allowed to be 0. Now, if we wanted to go back and check our work, we could plug our values of our variables back into the equation. But for right now, we're just wanting you to practice writing the equations and moving a variable across the equal sign, and then following our basic two-step inverse operations that we've been practicing the last couple of weeks. So if at any point you needed to pause the video or rewind it to get the notes, again, this is on page 14 in our notebook. And when you are done, go ahead and do the next thing on today's agenda. Thank you for watching.